Hello, this is David Shapiro with the Shapiro Real Estate Group, and it is our agent office hour. So we are excited to be able to answer some questions of local, and I guess you don't even have to be local to Austin, some real estate agents and see how we can help them. So I'm here with Lee Abraham, who's our SVP, and Lee has a long history in real estate. He studied it in college. He was an appraiser and owned an appraisal company for 15 years. You own an inspection company. You've been licensed as an agent since getting out of college. You've been an executive and helped create all sorts of courses around training agents how to build their business and other aspects of real estate. So we're lucky to have you here.
Very excited to be here, Dave. And now to introduce David Shapiro, ladies and gentlemen. So I met David maybe 8 years ago, something like that. And he's still a young agent, but at the time he was, even younger. And so I watched David grow in his practice. We worked together for quite a few years and a lot of transactions, and very excited to be part of the Shapiro Real Estate Group now, full time, and sharing some of the things we've learned over the years, and in my case, the decades, to help you build your real estate business. And so that brings us today to our webinar.
Cool. Yeah, we wanted to do this because it can be tough out there as a real estate agent on your own, and it takes a lot of learning the hard way. So any way we can help and put some more information out there on how to build your business or get through deals, build wealth, whatever it is. And these questions don't have to be just about being a real estate agent.
Right.
It could be, as a real estate agent, you want to invest on the side. You want
the work-life balance, the elusive work-life balance.
Yeah.
So we find that typically questions are going to, kind of fall into a few categories. How do I provide expertise? How do I value a property? How do I do the proper due diligence for my buyers? How do I help my sellers maximize their gain? Business building questions. Where do my leads come from? How do I move to the next income level as a profession? So a lot of different questions. We can go in any given direction, and that's what we're here for today.
So let's start with a question around generating business. I think that's the first thing as an agent. You get your license and you're like, great, now I'm allowed to practice real estate. Now, who do I work with?
Right.
And so you have to generate people to work with. Leads is often how they're referred to, or referrals. And so let's talk about some of the ways that somebody can do that. And I think once somebody understands all the different ways they can generate leads, then they maybe want to take a step back and figure out, what do they want their business to look like? And instead of just diving into one thing and not really putting too much thought into it, being intentional about what you want your business to look like in 3 or 5 years, and then working backwards, that, which types of leads that you're going to pursue is going to be a big part of that.
Absolutely. And one of the nuances there is, what type of business do you want to be doing? Do you want to be working with buyers? Do you want to be a listing specialist? Do you want to deal in investment property? That's really where it should start, is the intentional aspect of, what do I want to be doing in real estate? Because there's so many things that you can do. Too often agents get kind of swept into what comes their way, and they wind up never achieving the elusive work-life balance. So we'll talk about a few things, and I'll start it out, David. I mean, when I started in real estate, it was basically pre-internet. There were no internet leads. And over the past decade or so, internet leads has been a popular way for newer agents to get started. What are your thoughts, David, on internet leads?
I haven't paid for internet leads in the past. So I think when I was getting started, I knew pretty, clearly from different experiences. I'd already been in real estate and around it for 10 years as an investor. So I had seen different things, had different experiences, and there were some things I knew I didn't want to be doing. Cold calling. I had an experience where one of my listings as an investor, one expired, and the next day at 7:30 a.m., my phone started ringing, and as soon as I would hang up, it would ring again. And I was shocked by the third phone call, which all before 8 a.m. of agents trying to get the listing. And I thought, when I went to get my license, by the way, I got about 25 calls in 3 days. And the first guy, I was like, sure, you can come meet with me. By the second guy, I was like, well, I already got somebody meeting with me. Third guy, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to keep happening. And I just thought, wow, do I want to be one of 25 agents that's cold calling the day a listing expires? Now, it works. People get listings that way. That's why they keep doing it. You can do the same thing with withdrawn listings. But I knew that was something I didn't want to be doing.
And that actually is what I did out of college.
No, really?
Yeah, that was my primary lead generation activity. And so if you watched our market update from last month, we did the timeline of mortgage interest rates in 1982. When I started, rates were 17, 18%. And I started fresh out of college, and I was calling expired listings, and I did it 4 hours a day pretty religiously. And I became one of the top listing agents in my office. And that's when I realized I didn't know enough about valuing property. I was pretty good at getting listings, but not at the right price. And so expired listings are tough, and they're even tougher now than they used to be. Got consumers that are watching HGTV. They know how to fix up a house. They know how to sell a house.
Mm-hmm. When you say no, is it they know?
Yeah. Yeah, there's an illusion of expertise. So, but yeah, expired listings is one way. Internet leads are kind of the rage. What are you seeing some of the other agents out there doing to build?
I think popular and a way that I would have probably gone about it, I didn't, but could have easily, would have been open houses. I think that's still a very successful thing. And for those agents out there, if you don't know, like open houses, and I'll tell sellers this openly, like, you can host an open house. And open house isn't to sell your property. It's so a buyer's agent can get leads.
Right.
That's it. And, you know, the number of times an open house has sold a property is probably in the single digit percentages, low single digits. I don't know. Is that even overestimating it?
Well, I think that that's very true for sure. The odds of selling a house as a result directly of the open house, not that high. However, in the current market with such a shortage of supply and so much demand, the threat of an open house, putting the offers in right away so it doesn't go to the open house is kind of happening out there as well. But at that point, you're working with buyers. And if you're in the Austin market, working with buyers right now, running around looking for listings that aren't there in many cases, it's a tough way to go.
Yeah. And so you asked me on internet leads. I didn't actually answer the question. So I think there the conversion rate is just much lower because you're just dealing with somebody random off the internet. They call and they talk to you. You might have talked to 20 of those people to get one of them to convert to a closed sale. Right. So it's a really low conversion rate, but there's agents that are really good at that. Right. And the key there is you just get them on the phone. You're going to get on the phone with them. You make sure that you show them that you're an expert in what they're looking for, and you try to meet them pretty quickly. So you can get face to face with them and they can start to get comfortable with you. Because once you got to that point, you're no longer just this person off the internet, and your closing ratio is going to go up significantly. Yeah, they call it the speed to the lead. He who connects first often wins. The issue with that scenario oftentimes in today's marketplace is it tends to gravitate towards a commoditization of real estate where it's the commission rate. Are you going to kick something back? Are you going to discount on the listing side? And too often that's where agents, that's the only differentiation they can offer is by discounting their commission. Mm-hmm. So as we get into this conversation a little bit, David talked about differentiating yourself on the phone, that you are an expert. Well, that's key. So if you're looking to generate leads, think about what is my expertise? Am I an expertise in valuing property? Am I a local market expert where I know every corner of every street and every neighborhood? Is it investment methodology? What is your expertise? And that's really goes hand in hand with having the type of intentional direction of the type of leads that you want to generate. And what's a really cool feeling is when you get really honed in on your expertise, you're really good at it, and you have a surplus of people that fit in that, of clients, and somebody outside of that calls and says, hey, I do this thing. I've got a budget of $2 million. Can you help me? And you can confidently say, that sounds really cool. That's not our wheelhouse, right? But I've got a guy or a gal. They're going to be great for you. I build them up and I say, let me connect you with them. I make that connection. And it feels great because you're helping out this buyer because they're getting somebody that's really an expert in what they're looking for. You're helping out this other agent, and you can potentially get a referral fee for that. Right. And you get to stick to what you're really good at and really stay focused. So I think that's an amazing feeling. Now, it takes time to get there, and it's really hard when you're early in your career to do that. I would encourage you to do that and not get out over your skis, meaning be like working some farm and ranch deal, even though it's $2 million. and you probably end up losing the deal anyways, because you just didn't know that well enough, versus getting that expert in there.
Right.
They'll help you close the deal. If
Right.
you want to really learn about that and be involved, you can ask the agent, hey, I want to be involved every step of the way. I want to learn every aspect of farm and ranch. That's totally possible if you want to. We've taken the approach of, we're Central Austin experts. We're not trying to go out 2 hours and do ranches, even if they're a couple $1,000,000. We've got people that we partner with that are an extension of our team that do that and are amazing. We have a client right now. He's a great client of ours. He's bought 2 properties in the city limits, and he wanted to go get a ranch. And we connected him with our ranch expert. And a week later, he's under contract on a property he is super excited about. And that's just a win for everybody.
Yeah, it's about not being greedy. It's about understanding time management, focusing on the things that you have control over, and having the right people around you is really the key.
Yeah. And I think when we talked to that client initially, and we started talking about what his search would look like, we said, look, just so you know, we're going to put your interests ahead of ours.
Yes.
And if at any point we feel like we need to bring somebody else in that's a better fit because they're an expert in what you're looking for, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
And all of our clients know that, if we're talking about something and we don't know enough, we're going to bring the right person in. And then when we do say something, they take it, oh, okay, that's true.
Yeah.
Because they don't mess around. They want to make sure that they're providing value and the best guidance for me as a client.
Yeah, if you have confidence in your expertise, you're not going to try to do things that are out of your wheelhouse, So one of the ways to generate leads, David, that isn't really discussed enough and was really the key, not so much to building my business as an agent, but as a real estate appraiser. So I built Abraham Appraisals through business networking, structured business networking. Many of you may be familiar with an organization called BNI, Business Network International.
Yep.
Absolutely guarantee you, I haven't met you guys watching this video, but I'm going to guarantee you that if you get involved with a structured networking group like BNI as a realtor, you're going to grow your business. And if you do it right, you'll grow it exponentially. Basically what that looks like, typically it's a once a week meeting and 1 person per profession. So if you're lucky enough to be the agent, the real estate agent, you're going to be the only agent in the group. Typically there'll be a mortgage person, but then there's also going to be people like a massage therapist, a personal chef, an insurance agent, a financial planner. There's going to be this array of cross-industry connections that, guess what? All of those business owners know somebody who's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. If you can earn their trust, which is what happens in that structured environment over time, it becomes a natural source of referrals. So as we talk about generating business through leads, what we're really looking to do is generating your business through referrals. So why don't you share a little bit about your climb up the ranks, if you will, on how you built your business?
Yeah. When I got my license, I wasn't intending to build a real estate brokerage business. I just was going to have my license to do some stuff as an investor. And then a friend came to me, and that's the shorter version of it. But a friend came to me and said, hey, can you help me? And I talked to him about some off-market stuff as an investor, and we could partner, whatever. And like, at this point I had my license. I was like, yeah, sure. I got some free time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started looking around. We ended up finding something for him, and he was happy. And I had a great experience, better than I expected, as the real estate agent representing a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Thought, wow, I'm really good at that. It was fun. So let me just do more of that. And when people would come to me, instead of referring them to some other agent, I would say, yeah, I can help you.
Mm-hmm.
And there was times where, people would come to me and just be like I never even told them I was a real estate agent, but they knew I was in real estate. They didn't necessarily understand the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And they just came like, okay, hey, I'm looking to buy a house. So like, how do we go about that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dive right in. So, I just kind of let it organically come to me. And then I would tell people, hey, if you, actually, I don't even know if I ever really told people like, hey, if you know somebody looking to buy or sell. I maybe said that a handful of times, but mostly, I would think I would reinforce positively if somebody did refer somebody to me. I would say, thank you so much. That really means the world to me.
Mm-hmm.
Send them a thank you card for sending them somebody. If it closed, I would either, maybe take them out to dinner with the person that closed, if I could make time and everything. So But then it just organically grew, and I just kept providing good service. I think that's the key. When you knock it out of the park for the client, and you can put this in perspective of some other thing that you service that you use. Like I had a friend who was just raving about his massage therapist. His massage therapist didn't tell him, hey, I need referrals. The massage therapist just does such an amazing job every time.
Right.
Whenever massage comes up, he feels compelled to just say, oh my God, you need a massage. My massage therapist is incredible.
Yes.
Right. And this, you've probably heard people do this. You've done this with other things. So how do you create an experience working with the client that they feel compelled to do that? I think that's the most important thing. And so you can look at how you're acting throughout the transaction, pre-transaction, post-transaction, the little things. How can you go above and beyond and really just crush it for your clients that they're compelled to do that?
Yeah. Some of the trainings that we've done, we basically boil it down to reciprocity, the tipping point of reciprocity. How much relevant value can I deliver to my client as an agent, but then also as a person, as a resource between transactions, not just during the transaction. It's that sort of holistic approach to delivering superior value, of being a product of the product, of investing in real estate on your own, doing a great job for your friends. And that builds a critical mass that attracts people into your business. And that's the best way to do it. The trick to it, though, is, it doesn't happen overnight. And so what are you going to do to jumpstart your business? How are you going to get to that point? And we'll save that for another discussion. Main takeaway from my perspective is, don't expect internet leads to solve your business building challenges. Build relationships and build your expertise as the foundation so that people can refer you in a compelling way, that there's actually something about you other than your great personality, that you're available on the phone, and that you're fun to work with. You got to have a little more than that to have a sustainable referral business.
All right, we got Preston Stilovich. We're going to get him up here to ask a question. Let's see, did that work? All right. So Preston, we know he's an agent here in Austin. So if you can let's see if you can unmute yourself here, Preston. All right. Preston, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. All right. What question do you have for us?
So obviously there's a lot of different types of clients you work with, throughout your career, and investors and builders can be a good client base, because obviously they have repeat transactions. If you do a good job for you, they want to use you again. But every so often you deal with those that have this view of real estate agents that the more they can have working for them, the more likely they are to find the right deal for themselves. And so obviously in the interest of your time, you have to be selective about how much time you're willing to spend on a client that has a potential for spinning your wheels. And I'm wondering how do you approach that? When you meet a builder and he says, look, I don't ever work exclusively with one agent, but if you have a good deal, I'm out there buying properties all the time, so send it to me, and if it's the right lot, I'll use you for these services.
Yeah, I think first, there's two different categories of people that are resistant to sign a buyer rep agreement. The first being just a buyer that doesn't understand how it works, and you maybe need to explain to them a little bit. The second being what you're talking about is a buyer that has a full understanding of how it works, and he thinks that it's limiting the opportunities for him. So I think there's a couple ways you can go about this. I was in a similar situation a couple of years ago, and I just told the client, I primarily work with buyer rep agreements, explain a little bit about why. I said, look, initially I'm willing to go without one, prove myself. But just, like down the road, we're going to have this conversation again, and hope that, I perform well enough up until that point that when I have the conversation again, they're willing to do that. Now I can understand that there's probably some people that you get them a deal and they're still not willing to, they still don't see it. So you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I think it does track back to what I mentioned earlier about actually having some expertise to hang your hat on. One of the reasons that consumers, whether they're one and done home sellers or a repeat client like a builder developer. One of the reasons that they have such a low opinion of agents as a commodity is because it's well earned. There are just way too many agents out there that don't have expertise. The barrier to entry is way too low. And this is the playing field that we're in. So the first thing, and I know that, Preston and I go back a little bit, so we actually know each other. Preston's one of those rare agents that actually does develop his craft and expertise as an expert. That's the key, and to make it visible. So if we're working with a builder, for example, I would be talking to the builder about persona target property marketing, about we're not just looking for dirt or, whatever the object is that we're trying to purchase, but the back end, the strategy to, the exit strategy, being able to target this property, not just with a market value, but who are we going to sell it to and why, and how are we going to do that? Present a holistic plan from inception to reversion of the transaction, and you'll begin to differentiate yourself. Once you've achieved that critical mass, whether it's the first deal, maybe the second deal, if it's a difficult personality, put the hammer down and just make your value visible and known, draw a line in the sand and say, listen, here's what we need to do to work successfully together. Let's outline a project and let me run with it. And if I don't perform in whatever the time frame is, then great, I didn't earn the business. But at this point, I feel like we should have a relationship that's a step up versus the rest of the playing field. So it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, I think their main concern is that some agent's going to have some deal that you don't have access to. So I think showing them that you have access to pretty much everything.
Yes.
Like it's going to be a rare one-off that an agent comes across some, deal. They just happen to be talking to the right person.
Right.
And you can maybe work out. Like I had a scenario where I said, look, with this person, if somebody sends you a deal that I don't send you, you put me in contact with that agent. I'll work out a referral agreement with them. That look, you brought the deal. I will take this across the finish line and I will get you paid for bringing the deal, Mr. Agent. And if there's a couple of agents that this person has a relationship with, you could potentially have them have that conversation up front with that other agent and say, look, I prefer to be represented by Preston on the majority of the transaction. But if you send something and we buy it, we'll make sure you get paid.
Absolutely.
So, and I don't know if I was an agent and all I was doing was just forwarding emails to some guy and I got a cut of it. That's not so bad.
Yeah.
Maybe some other agents don't feel that way. And I think the other value add is if you're going to be screening the deals, right? Because if every other agent's just forwarding everything they get, and that's just creating more work for the buyer, for the builder, versus you're screening it. You're like, look, I did the math. This is why it's a good deal. And you could even show him, look, I got all those same deals. I'll send you all of them if you want. But if you want them pre-screened, so I save you time, is that more important to you? Then, that's one of the value adds of working exclusively with me.
Yeah.
And then I think at some point you just decide, is it worth my time? I'm spinning my wheels, potentially not getting a deal done because somebody else sends them the same deal. And maybe you have to at some point decide, all right, if they're not willing to sign a buyer rep agreement with me, this isn't a good fit. I can spend that time somewhere else with buyers that are willing to work exclusively with me. And hopefully they understand how tough it is out there right now as a buyer's agent.
Right.
I mean, we're doing 3 times the amount of work as we were 3 years ago to get somebody to come to closing. And
with people working remote, well, heck, they can live anywhere. So it makes it even harder. Excellent points. And, at the end of the day, not every client is a good client. Not every prospect is a good prospect. And you have to give people time to prove themselves to you. And if someone proves to be more trouble than they're worth, it's time to move on.
You got any follow-up questions to that, Preston?
Not on that question specifically. I think you guys covered it pretty well. I think sometimes, and maybe it's not just with builders, but it's with any client where you feel you have to finally answer that question of how much time have I spent with this person? And what's been the return on that time invested? And sometimes there's relationships there that make that even a harder question to answer. You're like, man, I really do just need to move on and spend my time elsewhere. But I think there's there's an internal struggle sometimes that it's more than just the time management piece. It's, relationship related as well.
There's also, what can play in there is the sunk cost fallacy. Like you've got all this time invested into this, getting a deal done. Like, well, I can't stop now. I got to get some money out of
you're
this.
not committed at this point.
Yeah, you feel that way. But, in reality, if you're to say, okay, if it's going to take me another 20 hours of work to get this person to a closed deal, like, could I potentially go get 2 other people closed and make double the amount of money? And so, really evaluating that and not getting stuck with the sunk cost fallacy is tough.
Yeah, I think this the one soft side of it. I mean, business is business, and there's the hard side of it, which is the numbers. But in real estate, oftentimes the numbers may not always be there. But if your client is genuine and needs help, it may not always be the most profitable scenario. But in good faith, you see it through with the client to make sure they get the right outcome. However, if the client is duplicitous and working with multiple agents, playing you off other agents, that's a whole different scenario. So just a lot of different things to factor in.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Preston.
You have another question, Preston?
Yeah, I'm curious around your business. You've emphasized the importance of laying that foundation of creating the customer, experience to organically grow your business, through referrals, word of mouth, and I've seen the success in that strategy as well. When it comes to finding success in that and then wanting to put some money into marketing, in your experience, what has been your best money spent?
Hands down is reinvesting into the supporters and advocates of us. So that could be an appreciation event.
Yes.
It could be just like, birthday gifts for some of those people. Like, hey, we really appreciate all the support.
Yes.
Taking them out to dinner.
Yes.
Any of those things where like these people have been huge advocates and we want them to know that we appreciate that. I think doubling down on that. I particularly like events. I think this goes to like when you're deciding how you want to build your business. Like I talked a little about cold calling at the beginning and how that wasn't a fit for me. There are people who love that. They would rather work with strangers and just cold call them and get deals done that way. Now, for those people, they may not want to do an event where they're inviting out people that they know and trying to build those relationships. But to me, that is where I'd rather spend the money is have my team. So I'm paying salaries towards a team, and that serves 2 purposes. One's around the events, but also we're able to provide a higher level of service during the transaction, so they have a better experience. So then they want to refer more people. So just reinvesting, I would say, in those 2 areas: the team and making sure we're keeping that level of service, and then the advocates of the team. Yeah,
I think in some of the consulting work that I've done over the years, the common denominator on the mega producers is the event marketing. You can look at marketing activities, mass personalized, where you're blasting things out. Group segmented is what we're talking about now, where you segment a group of champions or advocates, people that have referred business to you or are likely to refer business to you. Creating events, a sense of community. Those are the activities over time that have the greatest bang for the buck in terms of generating inbound business. And it's also one of the best ways to achieve that work-life balance. So if the events that you're doing are fun, that you're enjoying them, hanging out with people who you enjoy spending time with, that's really the best win-win for building a business. So event marketing on the bigger scale, and just as David said, showing appreciation to your clients and referral sources, whether it be, a meal out together, going to a ball game or an event that, you enjoy together. These are the type of things that are the best way to build your business, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I appreciate it. I do have one more question, unless you want to move on.
Up to you, go for it.
So when it comes to focusing on listings versus buyers, in your experience, have you found that listings now, with so many other listing services available for discounts and so on, have you found it more difficult to earn your 3%, even though you clearly provide, you know, a better service than say Listing Spark or something like that. Just wondering how often do you confront that, and how often do you end up discounting?
Yeah, I think that's certainly very, evident throughout the market, is that people are expecting a discount because you can go and get those discounted services. They have this impression of like, well, everything sells quickly. It sells, over asking.
Right.
Like, why do I need an agent? And I think the point there is like, yeah, everything's going to sell. It's just a matter of what's it going to sell for. And there's a lot of strategies, whether it comes to the marketing side of it, the pricing of it, and then of course the negotiating, where we can make a huge difference for a client. And then there's all the other value adds throughout the process. I think it's different if somebody who's never sold a home before versus somebody that sold several, and those are different conversations because they're thinking about it differently. And I mean, it comes, the relationships, you can actually have that in-depth conversation and show them. But it's definitely tough out there. We're all going up against that.
Yeah, and I think the biggest variable in that equation is, where did the lead or referral come from, and what was the strength of it? I know in our experience, some of the listings that we've been working with recently, there was never a discussion about a discount at all, because it's understood and known the value that we provide and the service that we offer. We've had some situations where, sellers have tried to negotiate with us, and typically it's not something that we're actively agreeing to. We prefer to deliver full service, and we have a business to run, we have expenses to cover, and it is a business. So occasionally there'll be certain situations, maybe extenuating circumstances where it makes sense to discount. But if you're cold calling for leads, you're going to have a much higher risk of needing to discount than if you built your business off of success and referrals, where people are coming to you. Maybe it comes up, do you discount? No, we don't. Here's why. The bottom line is, would you rather save a few $1,000s on a commission, or would you rather multiply that by 3-4 times in terms of the premium value that we can get by pricing the property and marketing it appropriately? Here's the difference in the bottom line. Let's do the math. And that's generally what we do.
And I think having stats or case studies to those points, showing like, at one point we were tracking it pretty regularly. I don't know if we still have it, Susie, but it was like the average agent in Austin sold at 98% and we sold at 104%.
Right.
So, okay, you're paying the 6%, which you're going to pay 3% pretty much no matter what to a buyer's agent. It's pretty hard to sell a property in this market without somebody having an agent. So here we're already making you more money, and, it's really the net and making sure they understand that is what they're going for. So having stats and case studies like, hey, here's a specific property. Here's, where the market thought it would sell for. Here's where we sold it for. Here's how we did that, and kind of show the value through that is really helpful. Whether that's like a pre-marketing packet, testimonial videos, things like that, where you can try to showcase the value that you're going to provide. And then I think being willing to say no and walk away.
Yes.
Because, you're not going to take a listing at 1 or 1.5% because you do have a business. I mean, It's easier for maybe an individual agent to say, sure, it's extra money, but whenever you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And so to keep that in mind of like, could you have gone and done a couple extra listing appointments and maybe gotten a full price listing, and really provided extra value. The other thing I hate to, I'll tell my clients, when they're trying to ask for, if they've asked for a discount, is like, look, I don't know how to give discount service. We're going to go 100%. This is just me in life. Any of my friends know this. I'm going out playing softball. I'm 100% sprinting after everything. So I only do things one way. And so it's really hard for me to give you a discount. And then are you expecting me to do less than I might do for the other person? So it's really not fair to me or the team. And then I'm like, well, yeah, right.
Yeah, I can't do a discounted job. That's just not how I work.
Yeah, that's why Susie and I work together, right? So we have the same values and philosophy, and so it's just it makes it tough for us because then we where do we cut back? And if we cut back, I don't know. It's not a situation I want to get in. I want to just knock it out of the park. And if they can't pay the fee we need to do that, then we'll say yes to something else by saying no to that. All right, Preston, thanks for the great questions.
Thank you, Preston.
Yeah, it was good talking to you. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Bye.
good chat with you. All right, so we got Cosette here. Let's get her up here to ask a question or two. Actually, Cosette submitted hers ahead of time, but all right, Cosette, you're with us. You want to ask your questions
Hello.
live?
Yeah. Hello.
All
Nice
right.
to meet you, Lee. I don't think we've crossed paths quite yet.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I had submitted a couple questions, but I know we had discussed briefly, being a buyer's and seller's agent. So pivoting a bit, I've got a few buyer clients from last year who are now, looking to sell their property or long-term rent it. And one of my clients actually has been Airbnb-ing his back unit, and that's worked really, really well for him. But at what point, as both of you as investors, do you say, okay, this cap rate is really good, you should sell, or you should hang on to it and play the appreciation game since the market is just so nuts right now?
Yeah, I think that's certainly going to be personal to each investor, depending on like what return they subjectively decide is good for them. But the metric that I like to calculate, which you can do with them, and you can ask them ahead of time, hey, what return would you feel good about? And it's all going to be probably based on alternatives. Because if they're to sell the property, what are they going to do with the money? Are they going to put it in the stock market? What expected return do they have there? Are they going to go buy some other piece of real estate, crypto, whatever it might be?
It's always crypto, Dave. It's always crypto.
Well, then they could expect a 300x return, so they should totally sell the property no matter what. No, I'm just kidding. But return on equity analysis is a little bit different than an ROI, which is return on investment or a cash on cash return. Essentially, it's like a cash on cash return for interesting. So, Susie just letting us know that we don't see Cosette as a participant. Can you hear her though?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I don't have my camera on.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Oh, okay, yeah. Is that it's basically a cash on cash return for how much equity you currently have in the property. So it's appreciated, maybe you did some renovations, and so the value of the equity that person has gone up. So basically, and we'll post in the comments the video. We're actually going to be posting it like today or tomorrow. So when we put this video on YouTube, in the comments, we'll also put a link to how to calculate return on equity. And so basically you're going to take whatever they're going to sell the property for, so whatever you're projecting, subtract any cost of selling to what they're going to walk away with. If there's going to be a tax consequence, subtract out how much they're going to pay in taxes, and that's how much equity they have. So if they sold it today, how much money would land in their bank account? So let's just say that number is $100,000 after they sell the property. Then you're going to calculate how much they're going to net each year, well, this next year in cash flow. And so let's just say that's 10 grand. So now their return on equity is 10% because it's 10 grand over to 100 grand. That might be different than their return on initial investment because maybe they only initially invested 50K. So if you're to do it based on that, it looks like a 20% return. But in reality, that's not accurate. So I think that's the important metric to run. So once you know what their return on equity is going to be for the next year, then you can make an informed decision on, hey, it's 15%. Well, that's pretty good, right? And you're taking into account, by the way, yeah, I guess it's not just the cash return because you do want to take into account appreciation. So, if you're expecting 5% appreciation on this property, let's say it's a $500,000 property, well, that's another 25 grand. So 25 grand plus the 10 grand in cash flow. Now it's 35 on 100. That's 35%. That's pretty stellar, right? So that person probably wouldn't sell unless they had some crazy good investment that they think is going to do even better than that. But if that's the case, they're not even probably doing the analysis because their other investment is so good. They're just like selling at all costs. So when it comes to like what percentage, I think, probably somewhere 10% and above, they're really strongly considering keeping it. 20% and above, it's probably a no-brainer. And then under 10, that's probably pretty subjective, 6 to 10, depending on the person. Sub 6%, I would say most people are probably going to sell it unless they're really close to retirement and they really want like a very conservative investment and they're fine with 5%. Personally, if a property is 5 or 6%, I'm definitely selling it. Even 10% is like, I think I can do better with, I'm expecting 8% appreciation per year in Austin moving forward over the next couple of years. So if you're leveraged 4-to-1, which is a 25% down payment, just the appreciation is a 32% return on your invested capital.
Yeah, no, it's interesting when you look at metrics and ROI and what am I receiving from this investment? What are my alternatives? Cash on cash can be very misleading in a lot of ways. It's meaningful, certainly the cash flow, but as David's talking about, return on equity is really the key. And that equity is not only coming or growing from value appreciation and debt reduction, but the return that you're getting also includes the tax benefits during the holding period. All those, the three forms of return: appreciation, income, and tax benefits, really need to be factored in when you're making these decisions, depending on where you're at in your career and your, your income potential. Different strategies at different points in your life and in your career make more sense. So at the peak of your income earnings, it may not be about the income. It might be more about the tax shelter. Early on, you want to balance that income, but also have some value appreciation. That's where different types of investments, whether they be single family homes that you rent out, properties that, even vacant land, and there's just an array of investments. So trying to simplify it down to one number and one metric probably isn't the best way to go. And when we were talking earlier about building a business by referral, if these are the questions that your clients are asking you, being able to have this sort of well-rounded discussion on the difference between cash on cash and return on equity, those are the type of nuanced conversations that are going to keep people coming to you, asking you for your guidance. And that's really the most important thing. The most important thing isn't the answer to the question. The most important thing is the process you use to answer the question. That's the key.
We're actually just going to publish the return on equity analysis video, which could actually help people figure out, how to calculate, what, strategy, they should approach. We're going to publish that today, so we can share that video link with everybody.
Perfect. Great. Does that answer your question? Follow up?
Yes. No, thank you so much. That's actually really helpful as well, because I'm personally in that boat, and I have a couple clients that literally texted me last week asking these kinds of questions. So I'm like, okay, I should probably figure this out.
Yeah. And I think, the other thing when people ask about selling is I always say like, well, why are you thinking about selling? Because what often happens in a market like Austin, which we're both in Austin, of course, is that they see prices go up. They think this is crazy. It's a bubble. It's unsustainable. That's all because they're just going based on emotion. And they want to sell and lock in their profits. But we'll be posting our market update later today. And so that's something that, you can check out and then try to relay that information to your clients, or maybe you're already well aware of this. But, what we're seeing in terms of inventory and demand, like I don't foresee the market going down. And any of these things that scare people, like, oh my God, crypto's crashing and the tech stocks are crashing. And like, how's that going to affect the economy and the Austin real estate market? Like, those are all buying opportunities. And so they should not be looking to sell if they think they're capitalizing on, the top of the market or something like that. So just another caveat to that of getting to the why they're thinking of selling.
Right. Yeah. Good advice.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Do you have another question?
Yeah, I have a quick one. Lee, I know you have background as an appraiser for some time.
Yeah.
So in Austin, obviously, as we just spoke about, the market is a little crazy.
Yeah.
And generally when I have an appraiser come out these days, we also have a full appraisal waiver on the buyer side. So, I'm working to pull comps and all that. Typically, you do like 60 to 90 days in the past, but 90 days is a totally different ballgame. So how should we be adjusting accordingly? Because obviously inventory is also low. So 30 days, then there's not enough stuff. So if you have any advice on that, I think that would be very helpful.
Well, the idea is that you're trying to add value by providing the appraiser with information that'll help them complete the appraisal successfully for your client's purposes to hit the value. And so in a rapidly changing market, it can be difficult. I've been involved in not only rapidly appreciating markets, but rapidly depreciating markets. It's funny because a lot of the people in the market today have never been in a buyer's market. I've never heard the word glut of inventory. Okay, so when you're dealing with appraisers and things moving quickly over time, either up or down, there's multiple keys to it. And so the first key is in this type of market where it's rapidly appreciating. If you're representing the value, you're a champion for the value, you're going to prepare not just comparables, but information about the subject property. What's the work that's been done? When was it done? How much money was put into it? What is the complete list of improvements that were made to the property? I just had a conversation with a seasoned agent a couple of days ago who failed to do that for their seller. And the appraisal came in low. Should never have come in low, but did, because the appraiser wasn't given enough information about the subject property to hit the value. So that's the first thing that you should prepare for the appraiser. Should have a list of improvements, when they were done, and if possible, how much money was put into that improvement. That's going to help the appraiser make sense of the contributory value. If it's a pool or a new roof, here's what it cost, and that'll help them kind of gauge what the value should be. When we're providing information to an appraiser, providing them comparables, well, great. Mr. or Mrs. Appraiser, here's the best comps. That's not going to do any good, typically. Typically, the appraiser is going to have access to the same comps you have. Now, if it's off market and you have some off market comps, then simply providing comps can be helpful. But the key to it is to not only provide the comps, but provide the analysis. And so the key is being able to put the comps on a grid, like an appraisal, and show this is sale number one, this is why it was inferior, these were the line item adjustments. So the bottom line is that when we're working in this capacity, we're providing information to the appraiser. We're giving them that list of the improvements to the home. We're showing them the comparables, but we're also giving them a price adjusted sales comparison analysis grid. Giving them a grid that's showing the dollar adjustments to support the value that we're advocating. Now, my stepson is an agent in Philadelphia. We just had this conversation yesterday. He met an appraiser out at the property. He was representing the buyer in this particular case. And the appraiser would not take the information, would not accept the packet that was prepared. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, from my perspective, that's an ethical violation of USPAP, the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. There's a big misconception about what is fair game with appraisers. We are not here to try to put pressure on the appraiser or to, manipulate the appraiser in any way to coerce the value. We're not looking to do any of that. All we're looking to do is something that goes like this. Mr. and Mrs. Appraiser, I know it's a very difficult job. I know you're very busy. You're overworked, underpaid. They've been asking you to get things done faster for less money every year that you're in this business. Here's how we approach the value for our client. This is the price adjusted sales comparison grid that we prepared. I'd like to provide it to you in the event that it might save a little time for you. And you know what? We haven't had an appraisal come in low that I can remember when we've met our clients, appraisers out on the property with that sort of information. So it's not just providing comparables, it's actually digging into the analysis and supporting the conclusion with appraisal methodology. It's not that easy. And that's where we were talking about earlier about the illusion of expertise in real estate. Now, I'm not saying that everybody has to be an appraiser or have appraisal skills to be an excellent agent. If that's not you, you need to have an expert on your team who can provide that service, because that's the only way I've found over the many years to successfully deal with appraisers over time, is to speak their language. And so in terms of the number of days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, You can only work with the data that's there. Appraiser can't create sales, can't create comparables. Typically, current listings are going to be the key, whether the market's going up or down. Principle of substitution. What else could the buyer purchase for the same amount of money? That's going to have a lot of weight in a rapidly changing market. And then ultimately, date of sale, market condition adjustments. And we can actually do a little training on that, where you're just taking a look at, you draw a polygon, you go into the MLS stats, you draw a polygon, you can run the past sales over, the past 6 months, past year, whatever it is, start breaking it down per month based on averages, showing an average price appreciation per month, annualizing it, and then using date of sale adjustments to comparables that are more than 45 or 60 days. Prices are going up 10% a year, then, 8% per month, 0.8% a month, whatever it comes out to, would be the appropriate dollar adjustment. The key is that you want to have some current data that doesn't require an adjustment, because if it's across the board line item adjustment, difficult to get that through underwriting. It's problematic, but those are the best answers that I can give you for working with an appraiser.
Cool. Wow. That was
Thank you.
Did you, is this? So we got a testimonial here from Preston that after repairing a sales comparison grid for a client during a refi second appraisal, providing my report helped the client get an increase from 860 to 1.125 million. You can bet that client will call me when they're ready to sell.
Yes.
So yeah, another way to add value outside of the transaction is if somebody's trying to do a refi and you can, really help them get the value that they want or even above that, that obviously goes a long way. They know you're not getting paid for that.
Absolutely.
So that's huge.
Yeah, that's what expertise will do for you.
Cosette, did you have a third question?
No, that is everything. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, you're
Thank you.
welcome.
Appreciate you joining
Yeah,
us.
thanks for joining us, Cosette.
Yeah, thanks for having this.
All right, so we've got about 7 minutes left. Just seeing here if we have any other questions to answer. So I guess we can chat, there is really low inventory.
Yeah.
In Austin. We'll plug my laptop in. So, for those people that are buyers agents, maybe we can talk to some of the things that they're dealing with. Oh, thanks. So, because it's like, you're one of 10 offers.
Mm-hmm.
And so you theoretically say, well, it's a 10% chance of winning it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess let's just chat about some of the things people can be doing to put their buyers in a better position
Right.
to win in these multiple offer situations. So, first of all, I think making sure your buyer has proper expectations of what's about to happen.
Right.
So that goes to the first meeting with them and just saying, like, here's what's going on in the market. This can be frustrating for buyers.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're probably not going to win the first one that we go after.
Right.
But you're gonna have to trust me that, because I think initially you have these buyers that they got to lose one or two before they really, and it's unfortunate because we can see what's about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I can look to the future and say, look, you're going to be willing to pay this price. We're going to look back on this deal in a month from now. You're going to, damn it, I wish I just paid a little bit more for that one and just gotten it done. Not only because maybe, just the time that was spent, or maybe you haven't found one that's better.
Right.
So that's something. So it's, I guess it's hard to really get them to understand that. Now, if you have a relationship with them, that could be a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, sometimes with the people that I have strong relationships with, I'm like, trust me, just pay a little bit up here, and they got to learn their own path.
Yeah, I mean, setting the right expectations for buyers in a competitive environment is key. First-time buyers, go through the purchase agreement with them ahead of time. Don't wait till you're writing up an offer to start talking about option money, paying for title insurance. There's multiple mechanisms that, you can build into your offer to position yourself in strength. And the buyer needs to understand that before you go in, because you got to move quickly in the current market.
Yeah,
That's a big deal.
and it's not going to stick the first time they hear the option fee.
Right.
The second time they hear about it, they're gonna have to explain it again, which is
Right.
totally fine,
Right,
right? But I think it's helpful for them to hear it a couple times.
right,
And get sort of used to some of these things, and you start to explain, here's some of the levers we can pull.
yeah,
When we're trying to get you under contract, 'cause
Yeah.
that's the goal, is get you under contract. Maybe talking about like, what's a deal in Austin, because everybody wants to get a deal. For me, getting a deal right now is getting anything under contract. That's a deal,
right,
because that is so tough. You could have everything going for you, and it's just, I don't know. It's
yeah, strange things can happen. So, when we talk about preparing to win, having the right expectations on the buyer side is critical. Being able to move quickly and decisively is key. One of the things that I think is lost more and more as time goes on is that human element. When we're representing a buyer, we're reaching out to the listing agent. We're building rapport with them, letting them know that, we've got a qualified buyer, easy to work with. What's the seller's concerns? What are the things that are most meaningful to them? That's really important. It's amazing on the listing side how many offers we get and we never hear from the agent. They
Mhm.
just email it over. That's unacceptable, really unacceptable. So, that's a key element to positioning yourself to win with buyers.
Yeah. And I think being on top of your A game in all these situations can be tough if you're just doing this solo and you're out there just grinding away month after month after month. And it's
Yeah.
been 3 years since you had a vacation.
Yeah, no, it can grind on.
So I think, having some sort of system in place so you can get away and rejuvenate and come back, whether it's a team or, whatever that might be.
Mhm.
Having an on-call, so you're not always the one having to take the
Right,
calls from a buyer on a Saturday. I just walked into an open house. I love it. You're not expecting that.
yeah.
So having some sort of systems in place.
And one of the keys, David mentioned a great point as agents dealing in the market every day, in the process every day. It's easy to take things for granted and kind of lose perspective on how the buyer might be retaining the information that you're sharing. But what I do know for a fact is it's one thing to hear something and understand it. It's another to experience it and feel it. And when you feel it, you learn it. So, putting that first offer in and not winning, that's when buyers typically really start getting smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I especially find it challenging when you have to work with a buyer that's out of town moving to Austin, right? Because everything's moving so quickly. And sometimes they may not even see the property
Yeah,
in person.
definitely tougher when they're
Yeah.
out of town too. So, all right. Well, this wraps our agent office hours. Thank you for joining us. Next one's gonna be on March 1st. So go ahead and register, submit questions ahead of time. You can, add to your questions as you go through the month and things come up. We'd love to hear from you. If you got a lot out of this, please go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel so you can get updated if you miss it live. We'll be posting these on YouTube so you can go check them out later. And if you have any questions about the Shapiro Real Estate Group, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Look forward to talking to you next month.
Thanks, everybody.